I'm not perfect. I am an environmentalist, but there are some things that I do that I wouldn't really describe as being eco.
I care about the planet, but why do some of my actions not showcase those views? I'm sharing some of the less sustainable actions that I do while I still call myself an environmentalist. Hi, I'm Charlie, and on my channel I talk about all things sustainability, from living a realistic eco lifestyle to DIYs and product reviews. Remember those days of the zero waste trend where we all tried to fit our rubbish into that one tiny glass jar? Well, that's not me, and that's not the trend anymore either. To be honest, I'm glad. Perfect sustainability is not attainable, and it just fosters eco-guilt. Guilt for the individuals who are most likely doing the most for the environment in the first place. In this video, I'm sharing some of the non-sustainable things that I do, even though I'm an environmentalist, to remind you that no one is perfect and we shouldn't be holding ourselves to this impossible standard. This is a caveat that I fully know that some of these things are pretty unsustainable, but I'm okay with that, and I am always trying to improve. But I just want to make sure that other people know that you can do these things and still care about the environment and call yourself an environmentalist. We're not perfect, and if we all try and do our best, that is the best way forward. Buy some of my food in plastic. Where I can, I will visit a refill shop and try and refill my food. But at the moment, I'm living in Canada and we don't have the best options for refill shops. Luckily, there is one in the town where I live, but they don't really have options for refilling food, or the food items are more spices and that kind of thing, rather than being able to get all of my dry goods from there. I can't complain too much because there is a refill shop, but it still doesn't allow me to not be purchasing any plastic. When I'm at a supermarket, I try to purchase in glass or in cardboard, but sometimes there isn't an option, or the option that isn't in cardboard or glass or something more recyclable than plastic is so much more expensive, and that's not really sustainable either. It shouldn't be a lifestyle that the ordinary person isn't allowed to have. It should be something that is widespread that everybody can do. I'm also a little bit addicted to crisps. I have even tried to make my own crisps. I always save the peels when I'm peeling potatoes, and I will put them in the oven, roast them, make my own crisps. But realistically, that's not something that I can be doing all the time, and probably for the overconsumption of crisps that I eat. So I do buy that in plastic. It is part of our lives, and it is difficult to not consume it. While I'm doing my best to try and limit the amount that I'm using, I'm also not killing myself over the fact that I have to occasionally buy things that come in single-use plastic. I still use the dryer in winter. As I'm living in Canada, things are a bit different to how they are back home. I'm used to having radiators and a clothes horse that I hang my clothes on to dry, and even putting socks and little bits like that on the radiators so they dry faster. Where I live, we have underfloor heating, which is great. I think it's really effective at keeping the space warm, but it does mean that we don't have anywhere to directly hang our clothes to dry, unless, of course, putting them on the floor would be an option. So instead, I do use the dryer. I know that it's not environmentally friendly for the amount of energy it uses, and also how it slowly damages your clothing. So it's best to always hang your clothes out to dry. In the sun with a bit of breeze is perfect for keeping your clothes and making them last for longer. But unfortunately, that isn't an option for me here without all of my clothes freezing and not having anything clean and dry to wear. I have had some people recommend getting a heated clothes hanger and getting a dehumidifier at the same time, and that's definitely something I want to try. I might take that back with me when I move back home to give that a go and dry my things quicker in the winter without having to resort to a dryer. I still have a car and I drive to work and to get around to go food shopping and all things like that. Put it simply, public transport is very bad in Canada. We don't have access to trains, and while there is a bus system where I live, it's very infrequent, and at the moment they're actually striking. Unfortunately, that means that it's very difficult to get around. There aren't any trains, at least where I am, and I know through much of Canada. So it's not quite the same as Europe in having access to that kind of public transport. If I could, I would always use public transport. I used to love it when I lived in London, being able to get around really quickly and having access to the tube. But here, that really isn't an option. For example, our car went into the shop the other week, so we didn't have it for almost a 2-week period, and we were really stranded in terms of getting groceries and any of that kind of thing that I needed to do. We had to order online and get it delivered to our door because there's no other option. However, I do share a car with my partner, so we only have one car between us, which I highly recommend. We don't find it difficult at all. It's quite easy to manage your schedules so that you can both use the car or pick one another up. And actually I found it much cheaper. There's less insurance, all that kind of stuff, which comes from owning a car. Ideally, when we come back home to the UK, I'd like to purchase a hybrid at least, or an electric vehicle, because living in Manchester, you do tend to still need a car. When I lived in Leeds, when I was at university, I used to love traveling everywhere on my bike, but that just isn't feasible in a lot of big cities as they don't have the infrastructure set up, and it can be really quite dangerous to cycle. I know lots of stories of people being hit in London and also in Manchester, and it really isn't worth it for your safety. My ideal is having a city where cars aren't allowed past a certain area, and you have to either get a tram or cycle or be a pedestrian in the centre of the city. It's funny when you see stadiums that are full of people, like a football stadium or a music concert, and when you look at it from a bird's eye view, the actual stadium is tiny in comparison to the car park. So people take up so much less space than their cars. And if we can try and eliminate cars from a city centre, the world, I think, would just be such a better place. That said, for now, I still do need to have a car, and unfortunately that's just the way that society is at the moment. I'd love to see that change, and I definitely will support public transport wherever I can, but for now, I'm stuck with using a car. I own a dog. That might sound random, but dogs are actually fairly bad for the environment when you think about how much they consume and what they consume, as well as just generally how many we have. And one of the main reasons that I say that my dog isn't the most environmentally friendly thing is that he still eats an omnivore diet. So while I'm plant-based and I primarily eat only plant-based meals, though I would still class myself as a vegetarian, but I don't really like labels when it comes to food. That aside, my dog definitely isn't vegan. I still feed him meat, and that's through time and research and speaking to nutritionists about the healthiest diet for my dog. I'm looking out for his health and making sure that he lives a happy life. And with that, I think the best food for him is a meat mixed with vegetable diet. I can stand corrected though. If you have any recommendations or you have a dog and you feed them in a certain way, I'd be really interested to hear more about that. He's 4 years old, and recently the vet said that his heart was in top shape. So I'm going to keep feeding him that until I see some evidence otherwise that he can still be that healthy. I know that that can be a little controversial within the environmental space, but that's my reasoning behind it, and I think that everybody can do what they think is right for them and their pet. Ziggy is a rescue, so we got him when he was about 1 year old, and I like to think that if we hadn't have got him, that he would still have been eating whatever it was, and this way I can try and make his life as environmentally friendly as possible. And I think that having a dog can really bring people closer to nature, having to go out no matter what the weather is and all that kind of stuff. So I think that whilst they can be bad for the environment, they still bring other environmental benefits too. I still travel by plane. Now I will caveat this because I don't really do any short haul flights anymore, but I live in Canada, so I've obviously done a long haul flight from the UK, and I do occasionally do long haul flights, but I really am trying to reduce how much I fly. The summer before we moved to Canada, we went on an epic interrail trip from Manchester all the way around Italy. So we went all the way by train, we didn't fly any of it. So getting the train from Manchester to London, the Eurostar, and then in France, Switzerland, and into Italy. And it was the best trip. I recommend going by train to everybody because you just have the best experience. It's not just about going to one place, it's the journey there as well. It's all part of the traveling experience. So if you can, get public transport because that's where you meet everyone, and travel by train, it is the best journey. I also think that limiting your short haul flying is really pivotal because that's a lot of the flying that we do. Yes, you can really limit the amount of time that it takes to get somewhere, but if you're only going on a 1 hour flight, you can probably get there another way that won't take months and months. It's those short business flights and the short haul holiday flights that everybody takes, that those I think are the ones that we can really limit. And that's what I try to do. I definitely want to utilise the public transport that exists in Europe when I get back because it is next to none and we really need to be doing more of that. I wish that there were better transport links all across the world, especially by train, because I don't think there's travelling better than going by train. Being perfect isn't my goal and I don't think it should be anyone's. Remember, it's the corporations and the governments who have made the biggest negative impact on the environment and the climate. But that's not to say that we don't have any power as individuals too. We can continue to spread the word within our circles to encourage those around us and to work together from the bottom up to influence change. The circle of influence is much bigger than you might think, and word of mouth can be so much more effective than any marketing campaign. Just do your best. Progress over perfection. If you want more inspiration of what a realistic eco lifestyle looks like, check out my video on ugly sustainable things that I own. And remember, the most sustainable things that you have are things that are already in your household. Do you consider yourself an environmentalist but still act unsustainably sometimes? Let's chat in the comments. I want to hear all about the unsustainable things that you do. In the description, you'll find links to my social media and blog, and subscribe for more honest and realistic sustainable lifestyle content. Until next time.